All right. We are live. Bonus stream. Here we go. See if we can't get our mocks popped up. For those just joining, first bonus content stream of the year. Should be a fun one. What we're looking to do is be breaking down any of the rosters from the draft, going into a little bit more nuance, pick by pick, what I would have done at certain spots. I want to go a little more in depth on your questions, ask you a couple questions about your questions, go a little bit deeper, try to find some better answers and better heuristics, thought processes as to how we go about this and solving the draft this year. So I'm actually going to get the draft board pulled up. And let's break it down. Sorry, give me just a moment here. All right. Let's get that on there. Okay. Here is our lovely draft board. See if I can't frame this a little better for you. Yeah, this was a good one. I greatly enjoyed this draft. I'm loving that right now. The draft community we're building over here is very strong, very competitive, very representative for all the folks that like doing mock drafts on the various platforms. Live drafting with you guys is some of the best, if not the best, off-season prep you can do. And we're doing it early enough. I know we've done these last couple weeks anyways, but this ADP is so much sharper than what you see out there. So this is almost the early ADP, and I think a good tool to study from a little bit. So if you guys have questions, whoever's listening in chat after this, if you have a team that you want me to break down, certainly let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and break down my team pick by pick, kind of what I was thinking. Happy to break down yours as well. And if anyone else has, if you want user submitted, what we want to do in this bonus stream is, bring me other drafts that you're in. Maybe we want to break down your Scott Fishbowl draft or your entire Scott Fishbowl league. If you have some friends in your league, dynasty startups that you've done or maybe are in the middle of and want to break down a couple of picks. I know in Philadelphia's chat, I know they're usually having quite a few questions about that too. So yeah, definitely just get them in our Discord, and if you post them in there, we'll be bringing them up. And so let's break it down a little bit. Let's see what we got here. So I was drafted. We randomized. I was from the 102. Initial observation for sure is this year I significantly like the right in the middle or at least the second half of the first round, particularly because of what happens in the second round. I think there's a massive tier break after Bucky Irving here at 2.6 and London at 2.7. And honestly, even witnessed by Hampton going as early as 2.9, which he's going to have to creep close. I mean, he's going to go in the third round for me, but I'm starting to get to the 2-3 turn with him because of the lack of other options that are like, what's up, Doc? Glad you're here. What about your draft? Yeah, happy to look into it. Let's dive into that right now, my friend. All right, so Doc Watson, we're going to be breaking you down here. Drafting from the 107, one of my favorite, if not my favorite spot to pick from. I might take a couple picks late, but generally I want to be as close to the middle. I'm that falling value guy. I always have a few guys I like in every range, and so I can get it from both sides. You have one of my ideal starts. CMC is definitely my pick almost across all formats after Chase, Gibbs, Bijan. I actually have CMC ahead of JJ, and he's pretty close with Barkley. I think Barkley is slightly safer, but the more competitive my league is, the more I want to draft CMC. I think he has the highest ceiling of any fantasy player pretty much any given year. Maybe this is his last year or two with that category, but I still think it's there. And with all the weapons in the offense kind of seemingly falling to the wayside, I think the 10 targets a game McCaffrey is probably incoming. So I like that quite a bit there. I would have taken CMC over Derrick Henry. But in general, he's one of my targets in round one, and you got him. And then, as I mentioned before, coming back on the turn here, I think there is a big tier break, as I said, with London and Bucky. With how the next couple of rounds have gone, I do think I like the double elite running back start because I think the wide receivers in 3 and 4 are kind of in the same tier for me. I mean, maybe a little bit different, but I don't think there's any drop off. Where I do think there could be a little bit of drop off in the running backs. You could get sniped. You might have players in a similar tier, but like one guy a lot more. So going and getting your guy before a tier break happens. In your spot, I would have done the exact same thing, and I would have gone Bucky for sure. In this format, I'll just say there is additional consideration to London here, specifically in 2 wide receiver drafts. In 3 wide receiver drafts, I feel like I want to draft slightly more wide receivers, build in some stable production with some upside, take more upside swings. So when you really hit on a rookie Lad McConkey, or, I'm taking a lot of Josh Downs and Ricky Pearsall this year, being able to build a lot of the, taking folks like Pittman late. If you look at the entire like rounds 6 through 9 almost, I like a lot of wide receivers in this range. I think they have significantly more upside than a lot of picks tend to. Jaden Higgins at 9-10 is one of my favorite picks. So in 3 wide receiver leagues, I maybe need to take an elite wide receiver one less because I think I can build in upside through just volume and savvy picks. In 2 wide receiver sets, in 2 wide receiver leagues, I should say, I really want more double elite wide receivers. And then I want to draft slightly more running backs. I just want 2 wide receivers that I know I don't want to plug and play my wide receiver 2. I want to just know I'm set there. So just to give you an idea, if that's why I would consider London here, more so. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. In this case, I still would have taken Bucky, but I think it's much closer, and London would have been in serious consideration for me. Getting on to 3 and 4. I do think there's a tier break here. I've said multiple times that AJ Brown's not my favorite. What I'm really meaning to say is AJ Brown, where he sometimes goes in drafts, he often goes in round 2 or at the 2-3 turn. I think where you're getting him with the tier breaks, Tyreek, Wilson, JSN are off the board. I would take AJ Brown over T. Higgins. I just think AJ Brown is a little less risky, and I'm definitely not dipping down into, I like Mike Evans. I'm pretty high on Marv. I'm pretty high on Devontae Adams. I would have considered all of these guys in this range. I just think AJ Brown's, his upside, his ceiling, his role in that offense, you probably just have to take him there. If I'm in your spot, I got to be honest, I'm not loving it, but I think he's a fine enough value that you have to take him there. So he was the pick, especially over the running backs having gone RB. And with the way the board fell, the interesting case is you definitely could. Breece Hall would have been in serious consideration there at 3-8 if you would have gone London. McCaffrey, London. I do think I would have gone Breece Hall there. So something to consider if you look at the falling value that Perk had. Right, you could have sniped Breece from him, and I think that would have been pretty nice value at the AJ Brown pick. So worth considering, depending on how we look at ADP. Coming around. RJ would have been cool. I'm sure Kamara was probably in consideration for you, but 2 wide receiver league in this tier, if you can find an elite wide receiver that you like still, I think you got to take it. For me, if I'm on the clock here, I'm absolutely taking Marv or Devontae. Less consideration for DJ Moore. I do think they may spread the ball around just a little bit. Caleb could use his legs a little bit. I like DJ Moore. I don't love his upside as much as Devontae or Marv. So yeah, that's pretty identical to what I would have gone. Yeah, and I think it's fine. I would spread my picks around. In my actual rankings, I've got to do some more projection work, but I think I have Devontae ranked slightly higher than Marv. But in terms of like elite league winning upside, I think Marv probably has a higher ceiling at this point. So I would lead Marv there. So solid pick. Round 5, I think the plan here was you were just going to take falling value and you saw a tier break at running back possibly. I think that makes sense here. And over the wide receivers that are left, I think the running back's the right choice. Mixon's fine there. It would have been Mixon, or I wouldn't have been afraid to reach for a Caleb Johnson or a Travion just because I'm so high on them. And I think once you take them, it creates the run anyway, so you're forcing lower tier picks to the rest of the round. But I think Mixon, the thing that worries me is he is, again, 1 year older, but We were saying about him last year, and he killed it. The offensive line finished bad, and according to PFF and a lot of folks that I trust, it got worse. Right now, it's projected to be one of the worst in the league. I still think he's talented enough to overcome, and I think he's a good pass catcher. But if they blend the snap share just a little bit and Chubb vultures a little bit, I think he loses that sort of volume king ability. And if the O-line struggles and they just are forced to not run the ball quite as much because it's not as efficient and they have a billion good wide receivers, I don't know. I have slightly more question marks this year on it. So I still think it's a fine pick, but I think it's worth considering that I honestly wouldn't be completely upset going Travion or Caleb, since you already have your two stable running backs and you technically don't have to start mixing right away. You may want to build in some additional late season upside. So worth considering. But anyways, here we are moving on to the turn. At 6'6", obviously got sniped on Hendy, got sniped on Caleb. I do think I would have gone Hunter here. Exactly. I do like the upside in two wide receivers. As soon as I have, my AJ Brown and Marv here, I want to shoot for guys that, we got flex spots in consideration here, but I want folks that have the chance to legitimately push my wide receiver too. I just want elite upside. I think it would have been Hunter or Ridley. Like, I really just don't see Waddle or Rome or Josh Downs having the same ceiling that either of those guys do as really successful potential. Like, I call Hunter a wide receiver 1 because I think it's like a 1A, 1B, like a double alpha situation. Yeah, it's risky. Everyone knows that. But when it hits and if it hits, I think it's pretty ridiculous, right? It's one of those, like, the year we drafted Jamar Chase in the 6th round, right? That was pretty silly. I think the talent's there. Fantasy is weighted towards upside. The more competitive league you're in, I think the more you have to take bigger swings because everyone's just too good. And you need to build in some outcomes where it really elevates you. So like that pick, I would have gone similar. If I wasn't going Hunter, I would have gone Ridley just for another option. But between the two, I would have gone Hunter. Moving on, we went Hawk at 7-7. I think you probably went Hawk here because you looked at the board. Hawk was probably looking like a value in ADP. I think he's a little elevated. I know he's rising up boards because of the Addison suspension. And JJ McCarthy's gotten some pretty decent reports. So I'm okay with it. I think he's in such a similar tier for me, to be honest, as, like Hawk, Kelsey, Kraft, and Njoku. I think they're close. Like, I think Hawk and Njoku and Kraft are very close. If Warren has an upside case, I think he's there. So it is kind of taking a player that I see as a very muddy tier. I don't see the top and bottom of that tier as significantly different. So you are it's like a slight value loss if everyone's kind of the same in 2 to 3 rounds, if you take them early. But at the same time, who are we taking him over? Was there another pick that I absolutely needed to have? Not necessarily. And in those cases, I think the idea is take a player you like at a position you need if you don't love the rest of the board, because you might see some falling value in the next round. But if you hadn't taken that positional player, you're going to have to pass on a rough situation, right? You'll bleed value later on. So that's why I'm saying it's not my favorite, but it's also not my least favorite pick, right? Because if you don't take him there, I think the correct play after that would be, you can't take Njoku in 9 because he would have gone, right? Do I like Warren in 8 versus Hawk in 7? I think Hawk in 7 is significantly safer, right? And I think talent-wise, at this stage in the career with Hawkinson, I just think is underrated talent. I think he's very, very good at what he does. And I think further removed from the injury, I see a little bit more upside. So who else would I have taken there, right? What I'm asking myself is, how badly do I want Ricky Pearsall over him? The news is definitely going to hurt his ADP a little bit. You could have played the ADP game to maybe get him at 8-6. So because it's also an ADP game, I think the Hawkinson pick is pretty justified. I'm okay with it. I don't think if you're waiting, you might wait a round or 2. I think the optimal range was 7 through 9. You just pulled it on a slightly earlier, but I don't think your next 2 picks suffered, if that makes sense. So for those reasons, I think it's a fine pick. You could have potentially waited. I don't think it would have affected much. The running backs at that point weren't going to affect a whole lot with already having 3, so worked out quite a bit. Now, worth noting, if Brian Robinson or Josh Downs or Rome was still on the board, I would have taken any of those guys for sure without thinking twice. The reason I'm really saying Hawk is a fine pick there, if not a good pick, is I just don't love the rest of the board. I mean, I like Judy and I like Pearsall as the next kind of up for me. And then I'm reaching for them, but I'm still pretty high on Mooney, Trey Harris, Egbuka, and then Ayuk if you have an IR spot. But all of these guys would have been available next round, right? So still ends up working out okay. Moving on, I think I don't know if I talked about it specifically, but I was talking about Perk's Godwin pick. This has overlap with your Debo pick in that, am I high on Debo this year? No. Am I in agreement that in a two starting wide receivers for sure? You're always going to have great positional players, but specifically at wide receiver, if you're in a situation where all of your late round picks hit, right? Let's say we actually hit in all of our running backs, and you went with a build where you're definitely going more wide receiver heavy. You're pretty balanced. I just want wide receivers that can push for my wide receiver too if they hit. If they don't hit, they're still a fine flex in many cases. But Debo has a range of outcomes where McLaurin hasn't always been a ridiculous target earner. He's been a little bit of a deeper A-dot, great at winning 50-50. He's got good feel for the ball in the air, pretty decent catch radius. Just a good, slightly more downfield wide receiver. I think Debo has the chance to, one, he can still rush a little bit. And I think the team wants to run the ball a lot. And I think the ability for Debo to just still get some carries, still get some sweeps. I mean, he looked out of shape. Doesn't mean he has to be out of shape by the time the season starts. Doesn't mean he has to be in shape though either, right? We have to embrace some sort of risk, but we're in the 8th round. I like the risk-reward ratio of a guy like Debo. If I were to compare a guy like Debo here with a Jacoby Myers pick or like a Juwan Jennings pick, I don't hate Juwan Jennings. I don't hate Jacoby Myers, but I do think the ceiling outcome, like none of those guys are ever going to have a season like Debo had, in former years. And I think Debo is still known from coaching staffs. He's a good guy. He's a locker room guy. QBs like him. The whole team likes him. Every team he's on likes him. I think that matters when it comes to elite upside. If he does get himself in shape, the wide receiver room is super ambiguous. I really, I just talked about him. I love Brian Robinson, but what's Eckler got left? I still like Eckler too. The point I'm saying is those guys aren't tremendously overly talented where we've seen Debo do some pretty disgusting stuff. Doesn't have to hit, but if it does, that's the type of player I want in a thinner wide receiver league. So that's why the pick feels gross sometimes, but I think stylistically it makes sense over other picks, and I get the idea. I think that's what you were going for. If you weren't, certainly let me know. And then to your question, is are they going to get the contract worked out for McLaurin? Yeah, certainly they're going to get the contract worked out. They're just not going to be in a massive rush, I don't think. But I do think that they'll get it worked out. It's one of those situations where I don't think the coaching staff or anybody's going to ding McLaurin. They get it. You got to go get your money. It's your last contract. Do what you got to do. It's going to take a second, but they'll get it done. Everyone wants to go to the Commanders right now, right? McLaurin, it's a good time to negotiate, but he's not going to let this get in the way of not being on the Commanders, right? Like that's just not going to happen. So, yeah, I think it gets done. And good point here. Yeah, Debo stealing some red zone touches from B-Rob. I mean, a little bit. I'm drafting a lot of B-Rob because I think what was the stat that a few sharp folks in the community are talking about? Basically, the expected value of the running back touches for Washington last year was insane. The expected running back first downs, the expected running back touchdowns were actually pretty insane. They actually underperformed what they should have done. So with a little bit more luck, I think that backfield has the chance to do. Who was paired up with DeAndre Swift on Detroit? I'm blanking on his name. Chat, you'll help me remember here at some point, right? But 10 touchdowns and crushed it. I feel like that, but as a starter, right? I think that's super available. So like them quite a bit, but that's why I like the Debo pick there. And then Fanta, what do we got? Hawk's going to have a great year. JJ excels in middle of the field. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That is a very, very valid point. Throw into a good tight end, similar build. Yeah. Looking like a good pick. Yeah, especially with the Addison situation. I mean, as a tight end, if that suspension's early and Hawk can become involved in the offense from a play calling standpoint early on, that just, that stays around. No, not Roshan. This was not on the Bears. I'm talking. It was when Swift was still on the Lions. I'm trying to remember who his backfield teammate was. It's just the name is escaping me. I can literally picture him right now. I can hear him talking. But that level of like the touchdowns just came for the Lions running backs. I think that's going to happen again for the Commanders in a better way than last year. Jamal Williams. Thank you, Doc. There you go. That's exactly who I'm talking about. But he was the 2, right? I think he can have a Jamal Williams type of pick. What did I do here? Zion? Mr. Philadelphia. Thumbnail image. Do I see me at the 3 spot? Maybe. I don't do the thumbnails. I am technology challenged. I don't know what I'm doing. So, and you'll know when I do a thumbnail because it will not be pretty. This, you could call it the after show. It's not really the after show. We'll figure out what we're going to call it. The whole point of what this bonus content is going to become, just a little more intimate hangout with your favorite tavern master over here. So we're gonna have a sip and chill when mock drafts are happening. And don't worry, Doc, we're getting back to your breakdown here. But this demonstrates a bit of a point. When we're in the mocks, it's me and Classic and other guests, right? But there's a mock going on. There's picks to be had. There's questions to answer. There's just a lot to give a take on. There's a lot to talk about. And so many little spots are missed. You can only fit in so much time. And honestly, we need to make those shorter and shorter because I want to fit in more content. And, no one really watches the mock drafts. YouTube doesn't like promoting the videos if they're like ridiculously long. So cutting that a little bit short and then doing more bonus content made a lot more sense. But because I'm able to slow things down a little bit, what I want to do is be able to answer the question behind the question. When people ask for a roster breakdown, oftentimes if I'm going to break down 3 or 4 rosters, I'm breaking down build quality, right? I'm breaking down ranges of picks, stylistic choices, but I'm not really breaking down this player versus this player. Would I have taken this player? Who would I have taken? If not, why? If I went with another player, how would that affect other picks? What if it's a situation I'm actually up in the air about and I'm considering changing my own rankings for? I want to go into it to that nuanced level. So maybe we get less views and things of that nature, but I hope for the folks that do join, and this event will eventually be sub only for loyal members of what we have going on. I just wanted to give more back, more in depth, and get into the highest level of nuance and strategy that we can with mock drafts and drafts in general. We'll do more than just break down the mocks. If we go long enough, depending on how often we do these, we'll certainly be breaking down some user submitted content as well. So if you have dynasty startups, if your league just did a mock and you want to submit that, happy to break it down, as it's valuable for everyone else to see what other leagues are doing, what decisions people made in other leagues. Is that's just good market data that we can build from. So that's the idea. But y'all are the fans here, but we play together, right? I'm not some big famous analyst yet, but in the meantime, I just want to talk competitive fantasy football. You guys seem to enjoy my thoughts on the game. I don't think they're terrible either. And I wanted to find a solid place to break that down and to answer more nuanced questions, a little more of an intimate. If there was a fantasy football show on at a bar and we had some wings and a couple beers, let's say it, but take the bar out of it, make it more fireside chat, right? That's kind of the idea we have going on. So anyways, cheers, boys. Let's take a drink and keep going. We were breaking down Doc Watson's roster here, so let's keep it going. 9th round pick. Mr. Reed over here. Mr. Wide receiver 1. Golden did go off the board before him, That is interesting, but I don't think it's not like a correct or incorrect thing. I am drafting Reed over Golden. I'm not really drafting either of them a lot, but I'm not drafting them either. I think stylistically, I like the types of choices we're making here. I think this is basically a clone of the Debo pick to some extent, where it's high upside in an offense that was good, could be better. And let's say Golden just doesn't have a massive snap share, or what if it becomes like the Golden and Reed show all of a sudden, where they're just significantly better than the other folks? And I think Kraft is going to be on the field all the time, and it could resemble more of a Miami offense in its heyday with Waddle and Tyreek with speedsters, and they can kind of mirror that with some lower ADOT stuff, like the Chiefs often do. Can we do a Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy clone in this particular offense instead of the deeper ADOT stuff? Anyways, guess what I'm saying is the NFC North is a big offensive division. You got to put up points, and I don't mind drafting a wide receiver with speed, who is the one, who's being drafted not like a one, who has built-in immediate upside and could hit even higher, right? Could Jalen Reed have the last year's Jameson Williams season? Different offensive, vastly different situation, but I think you guys get the idea of just a few more designed targets, a few less chuck it and see, a little more designed stuff, and definitely more of the Devonta Smith is a great down the field target. I think his best use is the Rashee Rice role, though. One of my better Super Bowl bets was him 7 or more catches. Or maybe I had to bet 8. I don't know. He hit it either way. I just felt like, dude, he's going to catch a bunch of slants and he's going to be a first down machine. So similar to what Waddle did in his rookie season, right? So I think there's outcomes like that for Reed and a savvy coach that I think is known for running the crap out of the ball, but I don't think he's bad. So for those reasons, Reed and Debo are the similar types of upside picks. It's PPR and they both don't catch a lot of balls, but their role could be good enough that they could just have a huge ceiling if it hits the right way, and it's 2 wide receiver, not 3. So you want to really push these picks to see if they can push your wide receiver too. You at least want the viability. Let's take a quick question here from FF Season 1 here. What range would I pull the trigger on Mahomes and a Superflex, and what tier of quarterbacks do I have him in? ADP-wise, Mahomes typically goes late round 2, between the middle of round 2 and early round 3 is where I typically see him in redraft. This is interesting because right now, I'll be honest, I have been liking late quarterback and later quarterback and super late quarterback, and I'm trying to push the physical limits of when is it finally a mistake, and I have not found a point where it's too late to draft a quarterback. I'm going to be honest with you. So for those reasons, where he goes, I am not drafting. I'm almost not drafting him at all FF season. He would have to fall to like a level of it's a mistake, because stylistically I'm just not realistically drafting an early quarterback. I like the idea of loading up on positions in like the first 5 picks. And in Superflex right now, I'll be honest, I'm not really sniffing quarterback until round 6. And then I'm doing lots of double taps so that I don't get completely boxed out, because I don't need a third quarterback. I really don't feel the necessity immediately. I do want to draft one. So that's why I'll often double tap if I'm at a turn, but not until 6, maybe even 7. I've pushed it pretty late. I'll show a mock later on if I can on what I did. It's a slightly risky play. I end up with a lot of Bryce, Cam Ward type of stuff, with a lot of A-Rich as my third quarterback. Very fine. I love JJ McCarthy this year. Stafford, Penix, sometimes Dak falls pretty ridiculously late. So that whole tier of, I just think so many of them, I think, can outproduce their ADPs or be within a few points per game where it's negligible, but I gained massive positional advantages everywhere else to just, unbeatable level. That's kind of how I'm playing the board at quarterback in Superflex this year in particular. So I'm going to have Mahomes on 0% of my rosters based on where he goes. If I had to put him in a tier, just to kind of answer that question a little bit, I'd say you have your He's definitely a tier below Allen, Lamar, Hurts. Daniels still a tier below, especially with the Rice. I would put Mahomes in a similar tier of basically. I think Mahomes and Burrow are kind of right there with me. That's the range I'm looking for. I don't have quarterback tiers all figured out quite yet. I just know I haven't really had to worry about them yet because I like such a wide range of later quarterbacks, and I have so many positional picks that I feel like they're still values and they're being slept on. That maybe this changes if ADP gets really really sharp and all of the guys that look at how early Downs is going. I thought I was going to have Downs in every one of my leagues, and that's just not going to happen anymore probably. So if all of my favorite values become non-values, I may have to change this strategy at FF Season 1. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an answer right now. I would say stay tuned. I can't give you a perfect answer because ADP right now is still experimental. And more of us in these drafts are able to take late quarterback, but we usually know. I mean, anybody that's in a lot of leagues that does a lot of mocks, you've seen it happen, right? Where quarterbacks, I don't want to get screwed. You just draft quarterbacks early in real money drafts than you do in mocks, right? It just happens, right? And so because of that, we want to do as many competitive ADPs, and in the mock tournament, it kind of gets there. But just in general, even from the mocks, right when the season happens, just know quarterbacks are going to go a little bit earlier. So we'll have to see how that changes my strategy a little bit. But that's kind of where I'm at with them. Yeah, moving on here a little bit. Let's finish breaking down Doc's draft here. We'll get into some more questions, maybe some other drafts as well. We just did the Reed pick going into round 10 and 11. Let's do the pair here. So we went with Najee in 10 as our RB4. So it's either RB4 or we go wide receiver 6. Definitely at this point, I think the replacement value, like, do I like Kyle Williams? Yeah. Do I like Hollywood Brown? Yes. And rising on my board with the suspension, right? Like, that pick, I think, should go earlier. How early, I don't know, because I like all the wide receivers in front of him too. Wandale, I think, is criminally underrated if the quarterback play does improve. I don't love Russ, but I mean, it wasn't great last year, and he still caught 100 passes, and he was a second-round pick right in the NFL, right? I remember I was in on Wandale in the draft process. I still think he's just a talented wide receiver. Not having a ton of yards after the catch. Yeah, Tyler Lockett was phenomenal for a long time. Am I saying, Wandale's Tyler Lockett? No, but I'm not saying he's ridiculously far. He's young. He's talented. NFL players speak highly of him. I haven't heard a bad thing about him. So yeah, I think in all those in consideration, though, you've got 5 wide receivers I like. I think at this point, it's just more value for you. You've got Christian McCaffrey and Nixon on your team, right? I mean, these are slightly elevated, frail old men at this point, and I do think we need to start building in for, if either of them goes down for the year, we're probably not winning the league. But if they get banged up for a week or two and we need to pivot, I think we need to start seriously thinking about that. And honestly, it was worth considering potentially going with Dobbins or White at 9, but I think you were kind of finishing a tier of people that we like. So just keep that in mind. We maybe could have passed on Reed for a Rashad or Dobbins to give us a lot more stability. And potentially not getting sniped, because if Najee goes off, I think you're fully into like not startable production. So you got a little bit lucky in that Najee is still startable, but he's the last of that tier, right? So played dangerously. I think you got rewarded, but it didn't have to fall that way. So for the future reference, I think it may be worthwhile to consider maybe pulling the trigger on someone in 9, because there's a range of wide receivers that we like around later, but none of them are close to 1s. Reed's the 1 on his team. No one else is. So when you look at it from that perspective, it actually was the correct play. So, and Najee, we know the coaching staff likes him. We know they like his archetype. We know his injury is not like a real injury. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't need the preseason realistically. I mean, it would help, but it's not too crazy. So because of that, I think his ADP is going to go down because of the injury, missing camp, Hampton season. He's still going to be serviceable. He's still going to have a lot of goal line. I think we're all in on the offense. We're in on the running back room. We're in on the O-line. And I don't think there's a third RB that's getting any touches realistically, in my opinion. So yeah, I like that Najee got, like, I wasn't drafting him when he was perfectly healthy and everyone thought he was more like the 1A to the 1B. Now that injury, if you want to call it that, the firework incident, eye injury occurred, I think his suppressed ADP is putting him into a value range for me, where now he's more draftable. And I think you made a savvy pick there and a stabilizing pick that can get you 10 points on any given day. And is the smart play there for sure. I wouldn't have gone any other direction. Now, it's worth noting you went Najee. You could have gone Garendo. You have CMC. That is in consideration. Now, I think it's hard to take Garendo there because I reached pretty far in ADP on Garendo. And then I reached pretty far in ADP on Ford. But if you just throw ADP out of the window and think about it more in terms of pure tier breaks, right? I think those are all pretty close and better than the wide receivers until that last little range, kind of comes through. So I'm just saying, if you specifically have McCaffrey and you're looking down at the board there, if McCaffrey goes down, Garendo is a league winner that saves you your league. Najee is more of a stabilizing force. Like if McCaffrey goes down, you plug in Najee. You'd rather have Garendo if McCaffrey goes down, right? But if Mixon goes down, obviously you'd rather have Najee. And for bye week fill-ins, assuming everyone's healthy, you'd much rather have Najee. So it's just a consideration. It's something to think about to some extent. I think the idea is if McCaffrey's healthy and does what you need him to do, you win the league. It is nice having even if he gets injured, I still think I can win the league. That's like Garendo is such a high-end handcuff that I think it's worth considering. I bet you were playing the ADP game. You were hoping to wheel Garendo for sure, right? And so because of that, I don't fault you for it. But now knowing what you know now about, it's just not going to happen. I think he's going to go pretty close after Najee. I think the Najee, Garendo, Ford, Charbonnet, Davis Benson range, I think in particular, they're all going to feel better than every other pick in this range, well over the wide receivers, well over the tight ends, and all the quarterbacks fall into a similar range. So they're going to look incredibly buried in ADP. But I think you're going to see across enough mocks where they're just consistently going much higher. And I really need to see their ADP rise. So just generally for that range, know that you should probably be taking these players a little bit earlier because I think they're going to go off earlier and earlier and surprise you. And it's going to be that, oh, I thought I could play the ADP game for sure. And then a full run for 6 picks in a row. That could certainly happen there. And I see you guys in the chat there too. I just want to wrap this one up for Doc in case he has to bounce on us. So coming back the other way, Tank Bigsby over on Jacksonville. This is probably the first pick that's just I'm not the biggest fan of. I see the logic. Makes a lot of sense. I'm too in on Tootin, and I think the 3-headed monster, the what happens. I think Bigsby, maybe he's my blind spot, but I don't think he's good enough at any one thing to be a league winner. I see so few paths where he's a league winner. I see many paths where he's serviceable, startable, but like we like Charbonnet because if you get like he's probably okay sometimes on his own, but he's legitimately a force of nature if he gets the job. If ETN were to go down, I don't think Tank is the type of guy that's all of a sudden awesome, right? Like super awesome. I don't like if you start him, there's times where ETN is injured and out. Tank, the coach says he's the starter. I'll have leagues where if that was the case, I still may have an option I like more than Tank, right? In that case, like a healthy Brian Robinson versus Tank as the RB1. Taking the Brian Robinson, right? So because the upside is lacking in the outcomes, I think there are slightly better picks. Like I think the Benson pick is a little bit better there because I do think Benson might be a little more involved on his own potentially. And if an injury were to happen, I think he could actually walk into a massive workload that feels good. And I like that more than Tank, right? I also kind of like Eckler more than Tank just from, I think the Washington running back room is going to have a lot of value. I think it's a team that's going to have a very strong, consistent offense and going to put that backfield in scoring position. So I actually like Eckler to that point a little more than Tank. It's probably as deep as I'll go in terms of other picks I would have gone with. That's not super deep, obviously. You also didn't have a quarterback yet at that particular time. And so because I definitely would have gone Benson or Eckler, but if you don't like any of those picks, I do think, honestly, you probably could have just taken quarterback there too, knowing that the ranges are so close. It's not going to matter. Take the highest tier you have. So it's kind of my thoughts on what I would have how I would have gone there. Bateman in 12. I like that quite a bit. I like it specifically because if Nuke gets injured, and that's, I mean, how old is he now? 34 or something. If you take away Nuke from that offense, all of a sudden I think Bateman does have some more legitimate upside. He caught way too many touchdowns last year out of nowhere, right? That'll come back down. But there's a lot of ways where the Baltimore offense is going to be good. We always saw Bateman as a talented player. He was, riddled with all his injuries, and that, he was just not on the practice field enough to be in super consideration. But a Nuke injury could help him. A mid-season, I don't think Andrews gets traded, but crazier things have happened. Or if Andrews gets re-injured, we like Likely, but I'm just saying that we like all the pass catchers for a lot of reasons. I think he's talented, and I think there's a place where their passing game is just a little bit better. And he's a big part of that. So I do see him as more of a fill-in option. But I mean, at this point, who else are we taking? If you were going wide receiver, it's worth considering that, like, it's Bateman or it's Mims or it's Bryant or it's Tillman or Allen for me. They're all pretty similar. I'm looking for pure upside. I do think there's an argument that Mims has more upside, Bryant has more upside, and Tillman actually has more upside because they all could be the wide receiver 2 with poor wide receiver 1s in an ambiguous, like, the quarterback's going to throw to who's open because no one's loyal to anybody. I think Baltimore's going to try to get Zay more involved. I think they're going to try to get both of their tight ends involved. I think Keaton Mitchell is going to play a little bit more. If you think Chicago has too many mouths, I mean, Baltimore has all the mouths. They're all good. So for those reasons, maybe I would have gone a different way with Bateman. But at that point too, you also could have then taken a Tillman. You did end up taking Allen later on anyways, right? Which was in consideration for me. So if I thought you made a true mistake, I would say so. I don't think that's the case. Just trying to give you my thoughts on some other players that would have been in contention, maybe would have gotten picked there over. So just some thoughts. And maybe a Dylan Sampson I would have got. I would not have gone Tootin there. It's also worth mentioning I would have gone Purdy or JJ McCarthy or Jordan Love to pair with the upside Jaden Reed case. And I do think that would have been quite a bit stronger than Goff. Goff was very hot and cold last year, and his QB6 finish was heavily weighted by uber high-end performances. Losing a center, I don't know. I think, their offense could go more. They actually could go more pass heavy, to be fair. I mean, they scored touchdowns all over the place, but I think Goff could regress to the mean a little bit more. And I think some of those other quarterbacks, I like them a little bit better, not like a lot better. They're in similar tiers. But again, just giving you options at the Bateman pick where I think either he would have been around or other people I would have liked would have been around. But I think stylistically, the idea is if you're not super high on Goff, he was just best available there. It's worth noting that in that 12th range, you can just pull the trigger on a QB if you see a big tier drop-off difference, if you wanted to. So worth considering. And then Allen, one of my favorite picks. I mean, that is one of my favorite end of the draft picks. My last pick of any draft, I really want it to be a player that you're going to know what their role is, what the offense is, what everything looks like week 1, and you can make a decision on whether, hey, this feels good, let's keep going. Or, yep, no, hey, we took a swing and it's just not how it's going to be. There's going to be people that we want to run to the waiver wire for anyways. So make them droppable. And I think that's a situation where, hey, if Allen's like a solid 2 on a team, great. And I think that's what Allen's going to be. If that's, well, actually more 3. I mean, I'm less in on Ladd this year, but I do like Trey Harris. But Keenan's just savvy. So we'll see. If the defense isn't as good as the division is great and Allen can carve out more targets, a lot of upside there. So we'll see. But Doc, that's my breakdown for you. If you have any follow-ups, certainly let me know. Actually, we'll go into one of your follow-ups here right now. Thought I could get Dobbins where I picked Tank. He was down the board. Yeah. Another one of those players where in very sharp lobbies like this, where people are only going to make feel-good picks, no one's going to... It's like we're all playing the ADP game, but with like 25% of the available players, because we don't want to be forced to take a gross, like, well, he's a value here. We're just going to take the sexier pick. So Dobbins is going to skyrocket off boards. I could see him going even higher than where he went in this draft, to be honest. But I like the reasoning. I had that plenty, and I think it's the reason you do these mocks is to identify situations, not just players like Dobbins, but situations like Perk. Perk took RJ Harvey, right? That's a build you may want Dobbins on to a slightly more elevated fashion, right? Where he's got standalone value, but like the handcuff potential is insane, like standalone plus obscene upside, right? If you like a guy like Dobbins, just know how early you're going to have to reach for him and what other players he goes around so that you can make the call of, hey, it's the Dobbins range. If you like Pittman and Hollywood quite a bit, if you like the Jaden Higgins and whatnot, if you like those guys too much, you just know I am going to get 0 Dobbins unless it just falls right, so food for thought there. Yeah. Solid draft, though. I really liked your draft. I really liked Perk's draft. I tend to I think if you draft a certain way in the middle of the round, at this time of the year, in the middle rounds, a lot of falling value, a lot of fun picks, you can build pretty great. So I think you guys did very, very well with the builds there. FF season. We had a question here. In a Superflex 3, actually, we're going to come back to the FF season in just a second. I got to go up the board a little bit here. Mr. Perk had a couple as I was talking my crazy QB builds this year. So, yeah, 0 through round 6 and only 2. I'm saying only 2. What I meant by only 2 is it's a situation where I'm fine having only 2. It's certainly not optimal, but I'm not buried. Like, if I only have 2, it's because I took so many other positional players that I feel great on that I left myself in a situation where I took 2 QBs so late that's just all that's really viable and left, right? Now, here's the thing. It's pretty easy for me to grab 3 because I still have guys I think could be good. I'm still fine with taking a shot on A-Rich, right, and stuff like that. I'm fine taking Flacco as my QB3, right? There's just I might be okay with I'm not drafting him at this point, but like Rodgers as my 3, fine with that too. Fine with Russ as my 3. So because some of those guys are just nobody likes them, they tend to go a little bit later than they should. It gives me 1 round buffer in a lot of spots to like I'm boxed out at 2, but I can still get 1 more starter. That's what I mean by that. But yeah, I find that the difference between QB 10, 11, 12, and QB 16, 17, 18 is just so paper thin that I'm betting that as a fantasy community, all I need to do is be slightly sharper on the 16 through 20 range and have them actually finish 13 through 14 type. That's enough value that I think I like so many positional picks and I have enough my guys that I think that's how I want to win the leagues this year. I think the other way is like, okay, I drafted tiny bits of value. I just don't think I'm going to find a league winner this year. I haven't identified like this guy is going 2 rounds later than he should. And I want him everywhere. And I think he's going to win me my league. I think I have a better chance at saying you're all kind of a little bit wrong. And that just, it doesn't really matter that much at this range, and the whole range should fall, and it does. And so I'm going to take it at that lower value. But that's right now. Could get Fields as QB2 in round 6. Get a top QB as QB1. Maybe. I mean, I guess part of my call is like, okay, a top QB1, but here's the thing. Allen, Jackson, and Hurts. I don't think Hurts is that good of a thrower of the football. He's okay. He just runs in a billion touchdowns, right? Touchdowns have variance, but not for Hurts. What I'm saying is Joe Burrow goes after all those guys, right? Why? Joe Burrow is a significantly better quarterback with significantly better weapons. He just doesn't have the rushing cheat code, right? That's how the quarterback scoring is, though. Passing quarterbacks, like, did you hit 2 touchdowns or 3? Right? Like, good versus bad, they have so many games that fall just in such a tight range, And last year, the running backs all did really well, and they condensed some of the quarterbacks together in PPG, and yeah, I can see that happening again this year. So these middle quarterbacks, I don't look at as like significantly better. Now to your point, like one of the top quarterbacks, I don't know. I guess I'm also taking a little bit of a bet that I think we're also overvaluing the top quarterbacks to some extent. And I could see a couple of the top ones falling slightly out of it. No one thought Mahomes would fall out of the top 5 until he kind of did incrementally for a little while. I'm just saying it's not out of the question for some of them. I see a world in which Jaden Daniels, their defense is massively improved. I think the running backs will rush more in. I think his passing yardage could fall a little bit. I think his touchdowns could fall. And I think he could have a much better version of what happened to CJ Stroud last year. I just don't love all of his weapons. They're like, okay, but for where he goes, you need him to run a lot. Like I don't think an amazing pick if he doesn't run a lot. So that's just one example of a guy that could fall a little bit out. Baker, I do think he has slightly more volatility than we might be giving folks credit for. And then look in this particular draft, we got Bo Nix falling to 10. The ADP works very differently in Superflex, right? Because you don't have this falling value. Everyone has I could get boxed out, so it changes the game quite a bit. So we'll see. It also has to do with the tier ranges. I can even pull up. I'll pull up a draft for you later on where you can see how I did it, and I loved the way it came out. Like in Scott Fish this year, I was going later at QB than I think anybody, and I was gonna definitely take 2 to 3, but I only took them at a range where I felt there was a significant tier break at all the other positions, and then I could actually take a quarterback when I didn't want to make another pick. And right now in fantasy, like I think Christian McCaffrey can by himself outscore some of those top quarterbacks if they don't have a perfect season and be more of a league winner than they are. That's kind of my point. And if I can keep taking players like that, I'm going to this year, but we'll see what happens. Looking at a couple of things here. Do I think that Rice and Addison and Judkins are going too early now, given the looming suspension? Yeah, certainly. Judkins for sure. I'm not going to buy that. If Judkins falls, I'm not going to look for like, when is it a good time to draft him? I just think it's probably a bad offense, and I don't hate Jerome Ford, and I love Dylan Sampson in the draft process. So there's just a chance where the talent differentiator is just not big enough to really give him any sort of elite production. I mean, Judkins could have the same role as J.K. Dobbins. That could happen, especially given the situation. So like Judkins is almost off my board. Right, Rice and Addison, I don't know. They're just not my favorite. Like Addison, I think is kind of replaceable at his ADP and even falling. Like, where did he go? He went 7-8 here. I'm still just as fine with Jacoby Myers, Jennings, Mooney. I'm higher on market than Igbuka. I think Ayuk throwing him in an IR spot is probably fine, and he'll play at least similar to Addison when he comes back. Reed, Higgins. It's like, where like Reed and Higgins are, like the Reed, Higgins, Igbuka. This whole 9th round is, I think, where Addison should probably start getting to. I think he's a little bit high for me. Rice, it's Patrick Mahomes when he comes back. If he comes back and it's great, I think he's healthy, and I think he's what makes that offense really work. I can see still buying into Rashee Rice. I definitely think where Classic took him at 5'3", it just feels a little strong for me. At the same time, he could legitimately be a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the way. Like, I won't count that out. I also just think like Tet's a really good pick here, right? I think Smith and Pickens are 2 of the best wide receiver 2s in all. Like Dallas could have a terrible defense. And Pickens, drawing 2nd-tier corners, like, my God, Pickens could have himself a year. Devonta Smith, I know the defense is elite. That's what holds him back a little bit, honestly. But if the passing work if Saquon gets spelled a little bit, if teams decide all we're going to do is top Saquon, probably can't do it. But like, there's a lot of room for Devonta Smith to get a little better. Everything needs to happen Rashee Rice's way when he gets back. And I know we've seen it before, so we think it'll definitely happen. It doesn't have to, though, right? It just doesn't have to. So for those reasons, I'm going to pivot off of him if I can. Look, I'm going to get real with you guys. This doesn't happen very often, but Rashee Rice and how that went down, it was just so ugly, in my opinion, how it went down. I still think he's the luckiest human being I've ever seen. Like, his sentencing, I'm not going to go deep on this, but I think it was the lightest slap on the wrist I've ever seen for what happened. I hope the Kansas City as an organization takes that implicitly seriously, because if we don't, we are just letting another generation of football players just kind of get away with being a full-on menace to society. And I didn't care about that as much. I was a little more try hard when I didn't have kids, but now that I do, I love fantasy. I'm always going to play to win, but if I can make another pick and I don't have to stare at Rashee Rice, I'm going to do it. And I'm okay losing a league because I didn't take Rashee Rice. I'm very okay with that. So I'll leave it at that. That the dad in me is just saying, no, I'm disappointed, and I think everyone should sit you. So I'll give him a break next year, though, if he stays a good boy. Moving on a little bit, back to FF Season 1. In a Superflex 3 wide receiver league, what are you doing at tight end? Feels like anytime I take an early tight end, my team doesn't look as good. Well, I certainly agree with you. And even in this one quarterback league where I took Bowers at a pretty disgusting range, and I definitely wish I had just gone, Tyreek Garrett Wilson there, not taken Bowers, for sure. And then could have done this a little bit different. But what am I doing at tight end? In Superflex, a 3 wide receiver league, I am going late tight end. Certainly. Who am I targeting, and in what ranges am I targeting? So I'm still trying to walk in the sleeper ADP versus I want to read the board correctly. So there's taking sleeper ADP into account. I'm going to look at my favorite analyst boards, right? Like I'm going to look at Fantasy Pros ECR because everybody looks at it, right? I've always been a massive fan of the fantasy footballers. Right above the studio right here is actually I have an autographed picture of them from very, very early on, and that's the hey boys, we're gonna give it a shot over here, gonna fight the good fight, and so I'm looking at the UDK, because I think a lot of people have it, and I want to see what the popular rankings that people may use to influence their picks. How do I find value even in those data sets? Right. So I'm still figuring out where I'm taking it, but it's going to be a range of I am targeting. David Njoku is my favorite value currently. I really see him as a guy that can finish as a top 5 tight end in a lot of different ways. I think he's possibly the best wide receiver on the team at tight end. Jerry Jeudy has a lot of, sometimes he is just a guy. I think he's okay. I don't call Jerry Jeudy bad, but David Njoku was quite good. So for those reasons, Njoku, Kraft, I think, is one of the most stabilizing pass catching situations in Green Bay. I think last year the coaching staff later and later in the year was just like, Love kept going to him. Now the coaching staff is going to draw up more stuff for him. So Njoku and Kraft are I'm going to draft them, and they're absolutely going to outperform their ADP. Like I'm comfortable taking them anywhere at their ADP because they're going to outperform it. Ferguson. I think Ferguson with a healthy Dak is a stupid sleeper pick. I think their defense is atrocious. I think the division got a little bit stronger in some ways. And I think Ferguson, before the injury, was on track to have a fine season. He's not super old. I think he personally is playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think competition makes a lot of people better. I think having to cover 2 very strong wide receivers, one of those wide receivers being a 9-route specialist in Pickens, I think that even opens up the field for Ferguson and even more of a way. And I think they're going to need to use him more. And he was, he had that run where he was getting so many touchdowns, so many looks in the red zone there. So I think Ferguson's season is back on again, boys and girls. So those are 3 of my favorite targets: Kraft, Njoku, and Ferguson. And that gives you literally a 3-round range almost. Like in this draft, it was 9, 10, 11. I'd have to look at some Superflex boards, ADP changes, but I do want to leave the draft with one of them. If it goes even later, though, I'm still not super panicking, but that's where I feel less good. I think Warren and Loveland are going too early, so they're going to go earlier and earlier. I'm not going to be in on them. Brenton Strange is probably my okay. Tight end dried up because I found too many other picks that I'm enjoying. I still think Strange is going to have a good role, regardless of QB. I think he's a talented player. I think he was what a round 2 NFL pick. I'd have to check on that, but I think he was round 2. I think he's a talented player. I don't dislike De'Ami Brown, but also I have to bake in the if Hunter isn't everything, or if Hunter finds a lot more success on defense and he just has less of a snap share on offense. He's more of a red zone specific, not a target hog. Basically, when he's on the field, he's getting the ball, but he's just not getting it all the time. I think that opens up a lot of paths to where Strange has just enough volume to be safe, stabilizing, outpay his ADP. Maybe he's got some lowered ADP because the offense has previously been not super projectable, and that could improve a little bit. So he's sort of one of my safety valves over there if it comes to it. That's kind of my board at tight end. If something else happens, I have other players I have to pick, right? But if you're asking me like, hey, what's the strategy? Like if I take any of those players sort of at or close to ADP, I feel like the plan came together how it was supposed to. So hopefully that tells you what I was thinking and how I'm playing tight end in particular. And that's late enough where you're flush everywhere else and you're debating between this bench player, that bench player, or do I finally rip tight end? And that's where just, go ahead and rip tight end and it feels better there. What did our boy Picadelvia have to say about that? So, unless you want Bowers or Trey at tight end, you're fine waiting till 6, 7, or 9 to get a pretty reliable tight end. The only caveat I'll mention to that is I think we need to throw Kittle into the exact same tier as Bowers or Trey, especially like the recent news. We'll put it this way: before the Pearsall pup news, right? Before the Jennings contract, which none of that I think is a big issue. Anytime anyone goes in the pup, hamstring injury, guys have been playing fantasy a long time. We know hamstrings can get re-injured. I'm not saying it's nothing. I'm just saying it's not the most significant thing in the world. And I think the Juwan Jennings contract thing that's a non-starter. That is literally not news. Of course he had to, right? It would be stupid. Someone should tell him like, hey, dude, if you don't get a contract now, like, you've got to. And I think you're going to be fine. They'll put something together. It's not going to be a big deal. But man, Kittle has every right to be the tight end 1 this year. And I'm almost projecting it. I'm pretty close to just saying Vegas came out with their a lot. They finished a lot of futures rankings right now. The quarterbacks came out. Vegas likes Brock Purdy a lot more than we do. I take Vegas rankings pretty seriously. Looking for blind spots in the takes. I've always been a fan of Purdy. A fan of Shanahan. I've never seen Shanahan run a bad offense. And I think Kittle's going to be the best pass catcher in that offense and the most reliable pass catcher and a quarterback's friend and just someone that's going to feel good to give the ball to. And I think someone who rises to the occasion a lot. So for those reasons, I don't put Kittle a tier below them. I don't have I don't have them in separate tiers. I don't have the top 2 and then everybody else. I have Kittle right there with Trey and Bowers. And because they're so close, it's like if it's Bowers at the 1-2 turn or mid-second, Trey in the third, or Kittle in the fourth, if it's a round difference, give me Kittle. I actually just want the round difference of the cheaper tight end that can finish quicker. But anyway, just a little caveat there. I'm saying, I know it's so common for everyone to talk about Bowers McBride, and I hope they keep doing it because if I can get a round discount on Kittle, I'm going to do it. And you can't even call him a dark horse sleeper pick. He's just like, he's going to be projected within 20 fantasy points, probably within 10 fantasy points of McBride and Bowers. But when I get to my projections. Looks like fan agrees. Kittle easily finishes the tight end 1 this year, and you don't need to spend a top 2 or 3 round pick on Bowers and McBride. Yeah, hey, we as fantasy guys go, we know sometimes it's just go with the cheaper guy because more often than not we are 55 to 65% right more than 85, 95% right. And sometimes playing contrarian is just better math, depending on the value difference. And could not agree more at tight end in particular. And in a range, like, look where Kittle goes here at 310, right? I think right after T, I do see a drop off to McLaurin, Flowers. I mean, I like Harrison, Devontae, right? I would probably have to reach on them. But I think we're at a point where I think Kittle probably, more often than not, Kittle is a more consistent wide receiver, or consistent pass catcher. I'm sorry, than Marv, and I think he plays a similar role. He's gonna be open. He's gonna get peppered with targets. I mean, Adams has some pretty elite outcomes this year, so I think he's actually getting slept on where he goes in this draft. But where Kittle went, I'm saying Adams, Harrison, Kittle. That's it. I don't like a ton of picks there outside of the running backs. So yeah, for those reasons, I still think third is a little early. I still, probably for roster construction purposes and value over replacement, I probably want to hope he gets a little more value than that, but we'll see. Worth playing around with in the late third. If you can get him as early as the 3-4 turn, I think that's where it's like you kind of just have to. Any later than that's a steal. So definitely agree on that one. So cheers. Let's take it. I'm getting thirsty here, man. Let's take a drink or two. And we'll see. I'm not actually sure how long we're going to go tonight. Kind of our first round. So this is heavily going to be improvised by chat and who wants to go in what directions as well. This is not going to be much of a monologue, kind of just listen to me rant about anything. Because I can absolutely I can certainly do that, but not the type of stream that we're trying to have. So if any of you find folks that are in chat have either a roster that you want me to break down, or maybe questions on this mock, a mock you did, or player ranges, happy to go into that a little bit, starting as early as next week. I don't think we have time for it this week, unless someone asks. Someone asks, we'll certainly go into it. I am very willing to start doing some screen shares where I actually pull up some of my own personal leagues and give you guys a little peek behind the curtain as to here's what my dynasty rosters actually look like. Here's recent trades I'm doing or trying to do or have done. Here's my plan for the season. I just think it's fun. I am always super curious about what, some of the analysts that I like quite a bit. If I knew what some of JJ Zachariah's dynasty rosters look like, I would love that, right? Nick Zylek over at FFA, right? Absolutely love him. One of the best in the business. Something I'm hoping to emulate with my more short form content when I get back to it. I would love to know what his dynasty teams look like, because he doesn't talk dynasty very often, right? And I really like what Nick Ercolino does over at BDGE and kind of breaking down their own teams a little bit. So if anyone wants to do that, I think we'll start that as early as next week. And then maybe even doing some React to videos as well, looking at some other stuff. So Fike, glad you made it, man. So glad to have you, brother. Fanta just before says, I'll take a breakdown. You're here. Let's get it, my man. Mr. Early Hampton. You're the one that took him off the board for me, man, because he wasn't, I don't know if he would have made it back to you. I'd pretty happily take Hampton at 3-2 over Tyreek. Yeah. So let's dive into it. JJ at the 1-4. What would I have done there? JJ, Saquon, or CMC. I'm doing one of the three there. Fine taking JJ there. Definitely fine taking JJ there. In a 2 wide receiver set where I want two elite wide receivers. I really do. I feel like I can kind of piece it together pretty quick. I really want to start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, right? So it's really where do I see the value difference a little bit. Just the chances that JJ just probably is the best wide receiver in the NFL, the chance that he finishes the wide receiver 1 this year in a very loaded Minnesota team in an NFC North that needs to put up points. It's not a bad pick. Later into the year, we'll see how I feel about it. But right now, let's see how we feel about it. I'm very happy with JJ at 1-4. I wouldn't look at it as a a mistake over Barkley or McCaffrey for sure, and significantly less risky. I think that's worth noting. In round 2, probably my favorite pick there. I mean, at this point, Hampton I'm getting so steamed up on Hampton that, yeah, like I do like Hampton over Kyron. I'll just say that right now. And it's after the London Bucky tier break. So I do see Hampton in the same range as Tyreek, Garrett Wilson, Ladd, and JSN pretty close to me. This whole range of Ladd, Tyreek, Wilson, JSN. I'll pull Brees. I'll pull Brees into that tier. To be honest, I'm getting pretty big on Brees there. This whole range is close to me, but I've put Hampton in that tier. But I think he has probably some of the most league winning upside above that tier. So happy with the pick, and knowing you're going to get someone you like at the turn. I think this was the take Hampton there because there's 3 wide receivers you're fine with. That's how I'm doing the play there. I thought I was the highest in the industry on Hampton. So when I see people getting close to where I'm at, it's honestly, it's scary. It's bothersome because I want to take him everywhere. So if anything, yeah, you found your Hampton truther. I think it's a sick pick. Your draft probably started identical to what mine would have been. I was considering Garrett Wilson at the Tyreek Hill pick. I needed to take Tyreek a couple times in these mocks because I need to know what it feels like to pull the trigger on him and then stare at him. We've all done this, guys. We've all had the players that live in drafts. You just know you're not willing to deal with the mental anguish of not feeling as good about the pick anymore and then living with it forever, right? So that's actually, I was going to take Garrett Wilson here. I'm championing Garrett Wilson as a top 5 wideout this year. I know we're in on Fields purely because he's being drafted as a late running back, basically, right? That gets to play quarterback. I think we're forgetting that he couldn't get better, right? Like Geno, I don't think is anywhere close to what he will become. What Fields will become, I should say. So Fields is still young, and I think he can get better. And I think, I'm not saying I love the Jets coaching staff, but I think Chicago's coaching staff previously, I love it now, was just god awful, and it wasn't helping him at all. So you give him different mentors, I think his career trajectory is a lot different. And I just don't think he's a bad quarterback. I'll hate on a lot of Bears players. Happy to do so. It's not a homer in me. It's that I think he had a bad rap, and I liked him in college. Pairing back up with Garrett Wilson. I just don't think anyone's ready to buy into it again after, like, if they got excited about the Jets and then last season happened. I don't know. I think this is the year I'm actually excited about it. Last year I was tentatively excited. This year I'm kind of in on ADPs. So if I'm saying anything is that Garrett Wilson is a great pick there. Would have been my pick as well. Yeah, your first 4 rounds are what I would have done. Jefferson, Hampton, I would have taken Garrett Wilson there. Really no one else in consideration, by the way. Garrett Wilson, it was not close. At 3-4, if it were me, that is the only pick for me. So hard to give you more advice there. It's more of like, what if Garrett Wilson wasn't there? I think you're taking Trey pretty much every time there at 3-4, maybe. I mean, if it's me, it's like if Wilson isn't there, I do have to seriously think about Trey McBride. I would think about Tyreek Hill, or Brees. Brees would have been my other pick. If Garrett Wilson somehow goes and this all gets shifted upwards, I would have gone Brees there. But as it stands, I like the way you played it. Coming back, I thought, was I considering Downs at where was I at there? Real quick, Rome over Downs. Look, I was not expecting Downs to go at the 7-4, man. This is the earliest I've seen him go. It floored me a little bit. I definitely don't love being at the early half of the draft board. So I was trying to build in a little bit of upside. I wanted to play the ADP game a little bit because I didn't love my roster as much as I normally do. So the Rome pick was one, I think, more objective upside than Downs. Like if he really hits, he's going to hit hard. League winning hard. So I don't think it was a mistake. But yeah, I wanted Downs on the wheel, man. I wanted him real bad. It's hard for me because in leagues where everyone knows, I don't get Downs anymore because everyone steals them. So in other drafts, I still get to draft him a little bit. So anyway, that's that. Devontae, I liked Devontae. Honestly, I liked him over Sutton, over Walker, over Marv, over RJ, over Evans. Kamara's close, but I would have taken Devontae over Kamara too. Devontae is just, man, I think he could be really good. I think Matt Stafford is probably the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. The way that the best players in the NFL talk about Stafford tells you a lot. It tells you these are the guys that see him in practice. He's just that guy. And he's got a great coach. Solid team, not the best defense. Everything is pointing up. Like Devontae Adams was also good enough last year that I think Garrett Wilson is a phenomenal talent. Phenomenal. I mean, outrageous. Like his production on the field is much, much worse than he is talented. And Devontae Adams got onto the field and pushed him for production. And you could say that, yeah, but he hyper targeted him. It's his boy. Targets need to be earned, right? You have to be open enough to catch the ball. And I'm saying Devontae was great on the field at his age, doing quite well. I think he's going to do the same thing to Puka, and he's going to push him a little bit. So yes. Cool. I see you there. Pick. I just checked the DM there, so I'll be wrapping this up here in a bit, and we can certainly chat. So, anyways, Devontae pick, stupid elite pick there, absolutely my favorite. I think you got lucky that he fell to you, if I'm being real, and great pick. Coming around on the turn, I think we were hoping for Chuba. I was never getting you. I wanted Chuba at 5.2 and wasn't able to take him there. Couldn't bring myself to draft Pacheco at 5.2. I'd have to think about this one a little bit. I went with sort of a homer pick that I like a lot this year. But I think Pacheco makes a lot of sense there. It's close for me, right? Because like it's a range of it's Pacheco or Mixon or Connor. And do I feel strong enough that I would legitimately take a Hendy or a Caleb Johnson over that range as my RB2? Having to start him feels a little bit rough. I think Pacheco still deserves to be in the range. I think I may have gone Mixon over Pacheco. But now that I really think about it, overall upside, if Pacheco's fully healthy and looking good and Casey is back to a much better offense and Pacheco gets all the work and all the touches, I think he does. I think he does crush it a little bit. I think it's underrated that what the missile is out there as his backup. I don't think Hunt carves into too much work, but I think he's an underrated backup. He looked really good when he spelled CMC from time to time. Honestly, I have to think about this more. This is a close range. I couldn't bring myself to do it, but I really have to study up a little bit more on how I think and project that backfield. But I do think Pacheco could be pretty good. And I do think it's right. You have to take a running back here. So it is Pacheco, Mixon. Connor's tough because I want to take, if I take Connor, I think it's hurting my Benson. I think Benson's a guy you don't really always want to handcuff. I think you want to go for the upside of drafting another running back and then lucking into also having a startable Benson. So this is close. Part of me is just saying I want Henderson and Caleb Johnson here in a weird way. I'm almost willing to just bet on, I think those guys' range of outcomes could be silly. And I think the talent level on the field, like Pacheco, I think is nowhere close in talent to Travion and Caleb Johnson. So for those reasons, part of me is saying, for the same reasons that Hampton's going 2.9, and I think he's such a good player that it will just not be close when you see him on the field. I think that's how Caleb and Travion could be on their offenses. So let's put it this way. I'm almost at a point where I think I would just take the Travion or Caleb there and say, I think their upside is greater and I think their floor is better than people are giving them credit for. I don't knock the Pacheco pick, though. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not fully sold one way or another here. So there's a range of players I might take, and I have to study up on this range more. Do I like the wide receivers here above the running backs? Tet's got a pretty nice ceiling. As I said, Devonta Smith and Pickens are, elite wide. These I love the wide receiver twos this year. I took one in this round and feel pretty good about it. So they make really good wide receiver threes on the team. Ridley and Hunter next round also feel really good. You could make an argument that just these ranges, we should be taking running back and wide receiver here for sure. We like the range. I wouldn't consider any other position. So we got that right. What's our pick order? I think I like Ridley over McMillan, to be honest, possibly. And they're going around apart. So maybe it makes sense to take the favorite running back because we'll wheel whatever we like in the range. We'll see. By the time this pick's going to change, is what I mean. We're gonna be influenced by a little bit of camp reports and news. We'll have to dissect them a little bit. So this is a TBD. I think you're going with a positional player here, and I think we're probably going running back because running back creeps up the board faster and faster compared to wide receiver when ADP changes. So for those reasons, we're taking a running back here. We'll figure out who exactly it is at some point. Coming back around, ETN at 6'9". Looks like you were thinking something similar. Thought about taking Travion Henderson or Caleb Johnson, but couldn't start with two rookie running backs as my starters with a safe running back there. Good point. Hampton as your other starter and also being a rookie. I get the volatility of if they both take slight back seats in week 1 and 2. Does that start you with 2 L's? Got to be honest, the research says rookie running back. I mean, running backs have their best seasons real early on, and this was a touted running back class we were waiting for a long time. Part of me is saying the dynasty person is saying I'm betting so hard on specifically Omari and Hampton, Caleb Johnson, and Travion that I'm betting on them so hard in dynasty. I almost need to draft them in redraft to solidarity with the take. But I get it. Pacheco is probably one of the most safe picks you can make there. We know he's healthy. He's on the field again. He got some reports. He's looking good. He's in an offense that should be getting better. They're going to have to run a lot with Rasheed out of there. So maybe that gives him a couple more looks in the passing game too, right? I can't knock the pick whatsoever. We're just kind of sharing thought process here. So again, let's see where ADP settles, right? Let's just kind of see where it goes. But good takes, good conversation. ETN at 6'9". Personally, I think this is the first, I don't want to say objective mistake, but it's as close to it as I'll get. And here's what I mean. ETN has an ambiguous backfield situation. We see more like, oh, he could have a really good role, right? But I don't think we see do we see world-beating upside from ETN? I mean, maybe. You might not be wrong, because I made the argument that ETN is a better running back than Swift talent-wise. I'm more in on the Jags offense this year. I'm in on Hunter. I think it'll work. I don't even hate their tight end, right? So I think the offense could function significantly better. My challenge is that I think Swift has more of a lock on the backfield. And I think Ben Johnson didn't hate Swift when he coached him. I mean, he didn't love him, but he still passed him the ball at a decent clip. I do think Caleb Johnson, after making sure Gibbs got the ball a bunch, I think Swift is going to catch a lot more passes this year. I think he's going to use the check down. He's going to teach Caleb the check down's valuable. He made it work a lot where he's been. So I do think it's kind of a pick order mistake to go ETN before Swift. Maybe it was a personal call for you though too. And if you got your research and you got your guy, I think that's certainly in consideration. But for me, I just think Chicago's offense is even projected to be a little bit better. I think he has a better snap share. He's guaranteed the work, so it's a slightly risky pick. If you went with stability with Pacheco, Swift is even more stable than ETN. Is kind of my point there. You can even make the case that ETN and Pollard are pretty close, but Pollard was better for the team last year. I think you can make the case that Tennessee is better. They got better than Jacksonville got better. Coaching, quarterback across, they're just better, right? And talent on the field, it's been a while since ETN's looked good. Pollard hasn't looked bad in a long time. His efficiency got brutalized, but on a per play basis, he passed the eye test. I watched the games and Pollard looked very good. Sometimes he got tackled early, but it's not because he looked bad. So for those reasons, maybe I'm fading ETN a little bit much. Let me go a step further though. Brian Robinson. I think who has a better outcome to score 10 touchdowns, ETN or Brian Robinson? I think it's Brian Robinson, right? ETN can get a lot of goal line work sharked from a million different people. Or at the goal line, maybe they want to do more, like not RPO, but maybe they just want to try like, hey, we got our fancy weapon in Hunter. Maybe they don't run on the goal line as much. I think their quarterback has some legs for some of the RPO stuff. So I think you can make an argument that Brian Robinson and Swift are maybe better picks than ETN, and I think I swapped them in my rankings a little bit. So food for thought. I'm in on ETN. Let me be clear, but I'm in on ETN below those range of guys. I think at wide receiver, I think you have to go running back here, is what I'm saying. Like Victorious is saying he likes Waddle there over ETN. Maybe in a funnel. I won't even go into that take though, because it's less about that. It's more positionally. We have a rookie at 2. We have Pacheco. If we don't take ETN here, we're absolutely taking him at the next pick, right? So this is if you want, you can take Waddle or somebody here, but you have to take who's left. If you look at this point in the draft, though, coming back, I don't have Swift yet, so I have just Gibbs. So I'm going to take at least one running back, maybe 2, and the other guy only has Chuba, right? So the chances that minimum 2 running backs come off the board is like almost 100%. The chances that 3 go off are possible. And so for that reason, you kind of had to go running back at ETN and see what wheeled, right? I think that's probably the play. Vike is saying Waddle and then Aaron Jones would have been a little happier. Yeah, I guess the point is you don't really know what was going to wheel there, I guess is my point. But if you're fine with going as late as Aaron Jones wouldn't have gone above Swift, Pollard, Brian Robinson. I mean, maybe some people would have taken him, but I think the fact is if you look at the whole range, yeah, if you include Jones in there, all those backs aren't going to go. There's 4 or 5 we like. 2 or 3 are going to go. You're going to have at least one. It does eliminate the potential to go RB though too, right? So we have to ask the question, how much do we like the upside of Waddle, Rome, Downs over the range of running backs in that range, right? And how do we like the bring back? We ended up with Mason, but what is that range? Is it thinning out? There's an argument to be made that as running back ADP, because it always steadily increases, I don't think you'll have the Mason Spears tier at late 8 potentially anymore. And I think in this particular mock, you would have had a lot of options on the wheel by the time drafts are actually happening. I think in that spot, it's probably going to end up being more correct projection, right? Not fact. I think, like to your point is what I'm saying. I think by the time real ADP settles, I think that might be a place you have to double tap running back because it's just thinner. I think that may end a tier earlier, but we'll see. Let's monitor this. This is as you do mocks, as more FNMs come up, as you do your own mocks. Keep this specific range in this run of players in mind. See how they go in other mocks and see maybe in the next couple mocks, the range actually goes down a little bit and we were a little too RB heavy, maybe. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I think RBs are going to go up a little bit. I think the cases where like convincing ourselves that Pacheco is going to be awesome this year is going to go up. Convincing ourselves that Aaron Jones is a value is going to go up. Brian Robinson was a value where he went. I don't think he's going to end up in the 7th. I think he's going to creep up a little bit, right? I think you're more or less going to be looking at like Pollard, Tracy here, and that's maybe it at some point. And for those reasons, I think that's why I'm not saying Waddle's like the bad pick over here, Vike. What I'm saying is I don't think you're going to have the luxury to grab a Waddle here as often as you'd like to as ADP settles. We'll see, though. Good points, and I do agree that Waddle, Rome, and Downs in particular here really do end a tier. I think the difference between them and then Addison and the rest, like Pearsall would have absolutely been in consideration there too. With him and the pup and everything, the other guys are just way more safe and stable. And I think there's even a tier break between Waddle and Rome down. Like Downs, this hurts me to say it, but I think he's still a tier break below the upside of those two, right? He's never had a season close to those two, and he needs to do a lot, and so does the offense. So for those reasons too, if Waddle and Rome are still on the board in this range, these are guys that could finish as top 15 wide receivers legitimately going this late, where the upside is just not there with the rest. So this is a good range. I want to make a lot of picks here. So we're also deciding, again, going with positional picks here. No way I'm touching quarterback. No way I'm touching tight end because this range of positional players is too good to pass up. So just know we are not taking one of those positions here ever. Close range of picks. Let's move on. Let's finish this up. Hopefully we've probably beaten that horse a little bit dead there. But if there's more nuance I can go into, please do let me know. Mason on the bring back at 8-9. This is the first place I think tight end is in consideration. But looking at the board, Bowers, McBride off the board, only one tight end can go. Wouldn't have made sense to take him here. We end up going Mason. At this point, we are... Okay, I skipped over the Downs pick. Fantastic. If not Downs, it would have been B-Rob for me or Aaron Jones. For sure, it's one of those three picks. I'm definitely going Downs. Like, if it's me, but, like, it's unfair, right? Downs is my dude. I think he's going to be unreal this year. So I would have to take him there. We'll see where he ends up in my ultimate projectable, like, rankings. Not that my rankings aren't, like, there's projections and there's rankings. Those are actually two separate things. But I'm curious as to what my projections are for Downs and how that affects what I'd call like my range of outcomes for him, which is how I'd rank him. But I think, man, Jones and B-Rob are probably so safe that they're like still legitimately in consideration. But it's PPR. Give me the PPR machine. Let's go give me some Downs. And you got lucky. You got rewarded because, boom, Mason on the turn. I think Mason and Jones probably should go pretty similar and in drafts. Hawk being the biggest steal of this draft. Let me ask you, Vike, though, if here's my hard part, because I thought Hawk was a good pick. I can't call him the steal of the draft, though. Mostly because if I look at other picks, how much more do you like Hawkinson over Jones, B-Rob, Downs? Okay, I definitely like Hawk over Tracy. Rome, Pollard, Waddle, Swift. Okay, Hawk over Mahomes, sure. Hawk over Etienne, yeah, I'm probably there. Ridley, Hunter. Yeah, but so Vike's saying he's going to finish above Laporta and Ingram. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm not really in on either of them, right? I mean, like, I'm just saying he's a tight end, right? And I look at those other spots and I'm like, those are really valuable picks over there. It's tough because when the Josh Downs dries up, I don't think the good tight ends dry up right away. Like, I still like Njoku, I still like Ferguson, but I like Hawk. I am in on Hawk. So we were talking about this earlier, like before you popped in, when I was breaking down Doc Watson's draft here. I looked at it and said, look, if you didn't take Hawk at 7, I wanted to take a tight end in his build at either 7 or 8 or 9. Like, I wanted a tight end there. So Hawk at 7 or Njoku at 9. If you can guarantee me Njoku at 9, I want Njoku at 9. If it's Hawk at 7-7 and 50-50, you get Njoku at 9, and then 50-50, you get Ferguson where you want him. I'm going to have to start reaching to be safe at some point. And so because of that risk mitigation, I think it secures Hawk as a valuable pick there. But I just think the difference in those tight ends is a little bit slim to say he's like, that's like a ridiculously elite pick. I do think it was either right or correct or one of the two, but maybe not the stupidest value. I just think that's where he should go. But we'll see. Will he become more of a value as drafts and ADP change? Possibly. Probably. So we'll see. Moving on. Mr. Fant, I gotta take a drink here, man. My mouth is ridiculously dry, and I don't know why. I guess I've been talking for a few hours now. That'll do it. Normally, when you have a co-host, when they're talking, you can take a drink. When you're just running a stream by yourselves, it is very difficult to take a drink. And I've also done the rookie move. I have a bottle of wine in the fridge. I grabbed a carbonated beverage. For those of you that are thinking about getting into broadcasting, rookie move is drinking anything carbonated. Not good. And if you're going to pour it out very tall into a glass, destroy that carbonation. Nothing worse than a random burp on stream, but thankfully, y'all are awesome, so I appreciate that. Okay, that's better. All right, let's round this off, and I probably gotta cut it off. It is midnight in my town, and I have a pretty busy Saturday. Hopefully, recording some more content tomorrow. Actually, trying to get some of my pre-recorded sleepers, busts, values, and some different formats. So we'll have to speed this up a little bit for y'all. Mason, 8-9. Great pick. Absolutely love him. For me, if it were me in that spot, I would go Mason or I would go Tajay Spears. Both are RB2s that I'm particularly high on, RB2s that I think will have a sneaky high snap share, a sneaky high roll. But Mason is on the significantly more projectably good team with an offense that should be in the red zone quite a bit. And I just think he's a very talented player, multifaceted, not the biggest pass catcher, but just quite good. The pass catching is what maybe puts Spears pretty close for me, but the fact that Mason might have 10 touchdowns, right? That's certainly a thing. So love the pick. It would have been Mason or Spears here. I like a lot of the wide receivers, but I would assume that the running backs are going to dry up extremely fast. You gotta clearly you take Mason and you just feel fine with having your 4 backs, right? You feel good. You can breathe. Solid. So we come back around. Yeah, I mean, Vikes saying, yeah, Mason will probably be the Vikings RB1 at some point this season. Yeah, I agree. The chance that Aaron Jones rolls an ankle and has to miss 2 weeks, pretty high. And at his age, his rehab is going to be slower. As you get older, right, injury risk does go up a little bit, nothing crazy, a little bit, but your body does heal less fast as you get older. Many of you in chat, you know what I'm talking about. It just that's how it goes. So if he's out for 1 week, the chances it's 2 are higher. And the fact that, they're planning on having a good season, Minnesota. I think they want everyone fresh for the playoffs. I think Aaron Jones is a savvy veteran that they want as an on-the-field leader around that time, for sure, where Mason isn't quite there yet. So for those reasons, Jones might be on a little bit of a snap count of sorts and getting Mason more involved. And they want to flesh out how their offense is going to work using both. So we could go ahead nauseum on that. Mason, a great pick. Coming back around, Snipe City, I would imagine you liked a lot of the picks that went before. We end up going Egbuka. Others in consideration for me, and Egg would have been one of them. If I'm you, it's Egg or Ayuk or Reed or David Njoku or Jaden Higgins. It would have been one of these. Now, looking at your actual draft, knowing I could get Kraft in 10, I would have done what you did. I don't necessarily know if I would have gone Egbuka, though. I think I would have gone for more sustainable season-long upside, I think, where I think Egbuka is going to have more... He's going to have some games where he pops, but I think his role is going to be intermittent. The ability to know when to start Egbuka may be more difficult. You'll want to start him a lot. It won't always work, I think, is my call here. So if your league has an IR spot, I think that makes Ayuk a premium, right? You're going to have plenty of startable options, and he's going to be back on the field before bye weeks. So free roster spot, extra draft pick. You went quarterback to end this draft a way I want to, right? If you can throw Ayuk on the bench and pick up a free quarterback, right? Or free anything, super valuable. So if you had an IR spot, I'd go Ayuk. I would go Reed because I think Jordan Love could be better this year. I think the team could be better this year. And I think the upside of what Reed could be fighting for his life to hang on to the wide receiver 1 role. I think Reed probably knows you got to do what you got to do. It can go one or two ways. Either he could complain and it could not be good, or it could force him to just be better. So we'll see. Yeah, the punt return stuff I was just putting up there. God, I hope not. But if that's what he's doing to earn favor with the team, and he's saying, I'll return punts, I actually don't look at that as a negative. I look at that as like, that's a coach's guy, right? That's cool. So Egbuka, not a bad pick. I do think I would have gone another way. Now, I would have gone like Egbuka versus Jaden Higgins. That's close for me. I'm probably the world's lowest on Nico Collins. I actually don't mind Christian Kirk in that offense. I just love Jaden Higgins. I do think Egbuka is a better wide receiver in a more pass-heavy team with a much better O-line. So, like, those two feel close, but that's a dynasty thing. Like, look, it's Egbuka here. So, but again, I would have taken Ayuk or Reed above Egbuka. And this is from a massive Egbuka truther. The most significant take I have for you is the you may not always know when to start Egbuka. His blow-up games may not be as predictable. That's the reason. Now, if injury happens, do I think he's automatically like to start the year? Do I think there's a shot within a couple weeks he's actually just the wide receiver 2 because Evans is still the one, but we'll see what Godwin's doing. Yeah, that's a reality. But assuming they're all on the field, he's still just the 3, and it's hard to know when he's going to come in. I mean, we didn't really know when to start Jalen McMillan for a while. He was hot for so long, right? But there was no one else there. When anyone was around, it was more hot and cold. So those are the reasons. It may have been safer to just go Njoku, right? And honestly, let's say you take Egbuka off. How would you feel about your draft if you went David Njoku at 9-4 and then still had Kraft at 10-9? I think that's still a fine play too. Then you're just bulletproof there, and you can play matchups. You can play just who's got the hot hand type of thing. Not a bad way to go. And now that I'm thinking about it, would I take Njoku over the other wide receivers? Probably not, but it's close. It is pretty close for me. I like playing the ADP game a little bit more if you can. So yeah, I would have gone Njoku or the other two, but it's close. Kraft, given how the board fell, Kraft is the pick there for me. It's not close. I think Kraft is still a fine pick at 9-4 straight up, and it's a full round later. So I have 0 others in consideration. Given how your draft went, it would be Kraft. I would pick it in 1 second, and I wouldn't think twice. On the comeback, Garendo gone, Ford gone. That sucks. Man, whoever drafted those guys, smart. Went with Jonnu. Close. Now, I do see some legitimate ups. I know everyone immediately ran to, Jonnu, Freiermuth, maybe not a great offense. This won't be good. I think Jonnu got the ball last year because he's really good. I think they want to give Jonnu the ball a lot more than they want to give Freiermuth the ball. I think Jonnu was brought in similar to like Gesicki being brought into Cincinnati, like with an oft-injured T. Higgins. They needed a pass catcher. I think Jonnu was brought there to be a wide receiver. I think he was there to be a pure pass catcher, but a pass catcher that can play in 12 personnel in a run-heavy format structure. So I am not burying Jonnu like a lot of folks are, and I do see some sneaky upside. Rodgers loves his tight ends, right? I mean, he always has. He's thrown some pretty sick touchdowns to a lot of tight ends over the year. I think he's crafty, a savvy veteran, wants to find ways to get everyone involved. And I think Rodgers is going to see, look, and Smith did some things for Miami. He's a good player. Who else am I throwing the ball to? Yeah, it's no, like I don't want any Steelers outside of Metcalf and Johnson. I agree. I don't want to start anybody else. I don't want to draft anybody else to like play. But if we're between drafting a handcuff in Charbonnet and wide receiver, well, I actually kind of like Shaheed a little bit, but basically wide receiver 3s, not great ones, and handcuffs. Who's more startable? Jonnu, like if you had to play him week 1, Jonnu, Sharps, Ray Day, like it's Jonnu over all those guys week 1, right? Week 2, still probably there. Like if assuming no injury, Jonnu is going to be better than the running backs there. You could make the case that like, if you like the upside of Jonnu, like what's the upside of like Likely around later or Ferguson or even Kincaid to that extent? And you're like, well, how much do you really like Jonnu when there's a lot of chances kind of all around there? The point I'm making is I guess I'm not as low on Jonnu, and I think there's a blind spot here that they didn't bring in any pass catchers. And if they don't, Jonnu could legitimately be the second pass catching option. I draft tight ends because I want a tight end that is they could legitimately be or probably going to be the second receiving option. That's how I think you find league-winning tight ends. That's what I saw with Mark Andrews when I drafted him way back in the day when he was my last pick in many drafts. I don't see Jonnu the same, but I don't see him being buried as much. And I do kind of like the idea of drafting 2 tight ends that have some upside because if they both hit, oftentimes people that have just trash at tight end will trade for one, and I'll oftentimes draft a second tight end to trade. And so I don't think the strategy is bad. If you don't go with Jonnu there, I do think it would have been in consideration to take Ferguson or Kincaid or Likely as just a solid pick that might be a draft to trade, a little bit of insurance, combination of the two. So I think that's fine. Could have gone with quarterback here as well. In 11, I think it's worth noting that, yeah, I'm doing the same like super, super late quarterback play. And where you're looking, there's still so many options there. Um, uh, with the way the board fell, like it went perfect for you. But I think you could consider quarterback there. But with some drop offs at other tiers, I think it's a fine pick. Coming, we got the long turn here. We've got Bashal Tutin. And I think where you took him, that makes a lot of sense. Having ETN, you definitely secured the look. I want the upside backs in this offense. I want to take a big swing that like either ETN hits the home run, and if he doesn't, maybe the team needs one, and maybe Tutin really hits it. I think it's fine. It's a great pick. If injury were to happen, the tough part for me with Tutin is like I still think if ETN were just done and out, it's a timeshare, not a full runaway situation where like I think Tutin is my dynasty guy because I'm looking not this year, but at what could be next year with ETN walking probably. Searching to payday elsewhere that he won't get in Jacksonville. But we'll see. I think he has a little more voodoo doll upside than legitimate upside this year, but again, I'm a Bashal Tutin guy. I think he's got a great prospect profile. I think he can do a lot of things. I think he's talented running back. I think he's like the what did not the the Dynasty Domain guys did a little profile on him with the flock over there, and they basically called him the best running back drafted at his draft position in NFL history, and that's kind of fun. So it's certainly not a bad pick. The only choices here are: do you go with a quarterback tier break? Because I'm definitely taking one or two. You have guys that you love regardless of who gets taken there. So yeah, I agree. I do think that Dylan Sampson probably should be in consideration there, as I liked Dylan Sampson just as much, if not more, than Bashal Tutin in the draft process. Tutin's on a better offense. Sampson may get more work, possibly, than Tutin, but they're pretty close. Underrated pick by Breaking Ball here too in Tyler Algier, the one of the most valuable handcuffs in fantasy that gets slept on way too much. Like Tyler Algier should be considered more of a Garendo than he is. And he was better than Garendo before we even knew who Garendo was, before he was drafted. That's just the truth, right? So just by the way, guys, Algier's got to go earlier than 13-1. This is just disrespect. I mean, I know it's the unfun pick because you're like, I will not play him outside of injury. But if an injury were to happen, he's as good, if not better, than the 5th round running backs. And he's probably as good as the 4th round running backs if he gets a shot. That's how good his upside is. No one else in this range has that kind of upside if they get the role. So just my 2 cents. Yeah, he's getting slept on a little bit. To finish your draft, literally perfect. JJ McCarthy is exactly the pick I would have made there. I think it's the right pick. I think you have Justin Jefferson. So like, I mean, come on, what are we doing? Of course, if that all works out, it's going to be perfect. He's got legs to run. I was a big proponent of in rookie drafts. I'll say it right now, and I'm still right. You guys know I was right. I was like, God, why are we taking JJ McCarthy above Drake May? This makes no sense. And it's interesting that McCarthy goes above Drake May, but in Dynasty, right? Drake May's the guy. We all think he's going to be the guy for years to come, but maybe they'll get close. But in redraft this year with the weapons, with everything they have going on, yeah, it's a sick pick there. I do like McCarthy. I do like McCarthy over Love, but they are so close for me. So close. Love is safer. Let me just be honest. Love is safer. You go JJM, you got to take another quarterback just because maybe he has more. He's not a rookie, right? But things could happen. So anyways, moving on. JJ, Love, or Fields were my picks there. Some consideration for Dak, some consideration for May. Them in any combination is great, and I do think you should have taken 2 because of the slight volatility in JJ McCarthy. I think you didn't need to take Stafford necessarily. Like he's fine, and you have Devonta Adams, so you get the double stack potential. If one offense blows up, it just might be you just might ride the hot hand in matchups and keep both quarterbacks. That's certainly viable. Yeah, and I was going to make the case for maybe you should have. Maybe there's a shot that you just take A Rich there because if he gets the starting gig, he's got a chance to like. He still has the chance to be impeccable. It might not happen. Stafford with Adams and what that offense could be with Adams and Puka, and potentially more passing touchdowns than the rushing touchdowns that Kyron had. Yeah, I think you made the correct play there. It's close. It's close that I think the play was Stafford or A Rich. So, with that being said, there's a lot of picks. I mean, how many picks probably would I have had identical to you? Jefferson, Hampton, Wilson, Adams, Downs, Mason, Kraft, McCarthy, and maybe Stafford. I would have made literally the exact same picks in those spots. All around, structurally, late tight end, late quarterback, my favorite structure this year. You pulled it off with one of my targets at tight end and two of my targets at quarterback. I mean, from a build order standpoint on what I like this year, perfect marks there, specific picks, very, very high marks. So I think I've given you all the nuance I possibly can. Well played. Let me know about follow-ups. Going back to chat just for a little bit here. Don't think I forgot about you guys. I just wanted to finish that off and not get too interrupted as well. Wide receivers drying up after Jennings and Mooney. I agree to some extent. I would still keep. I mean, Trey Harris, especially with the recent news, and just I like that offense. I think Trey Harris is in a different risk category than like the for sure volume expectations of Jennings and Mooney. So put him in a separate tier. Ayuk, I mean, if you have an IR spot, you have got to include him in that though, right? I mean, maybe he starts off a little bit slow, but they're going to need him, right? And 90% Ayuk is probably just as good as Jennings, right? Jennings was never really a big thing outside of him being needed. So I would still keep Ayuk and Reed. I would keep Ayuk, Reed, and I mean, Higgins is risky, but like Diggs and Pittman, I think you still have to pop in that category, perhaps. Yeah. I mean, he might suck, right? But the chances that he sucks versus like range of outcomes, right? Is the range of outcomes that let's see what you're saying here. The range of outcomes for him is he could be good, he could be okay, he could suck. Is he a talented player? Like, does he know how to play wide receiver? Yeah, I think so. Will he be fully recovered? Probably not. Will he start a little bit slow? Probably, right? Does the team need him badly? Does the team pay him a lot of money and he'll have to get the ball? Probably. Do I have ridiculous ceiling expectations for him? No. Whenever I hear a take like that, I guess my mind runs to how right do you think we are on the he's definitely going to be great when he comes back and he's definitely going to be bad. Plus or minus 60% that you feel you're right. I don't know. I just don't know. Like, I think he could and might, but I can't say probably. And I need to have a better feeling on it. So that's also why I'm probably like, it's the IR spot play, right? I can take the risk because I get a free pick. And I'm looking at some of the picks later on. And like, if I can throw Ayuk on an IR spot and I can grab A Rich for free because I took Allen or Burden, right? Like that feels like free value. The ability to trade Ayuk right when he comes off of IR to somebody that wants to take a shot that he could be awesome, you could actually get some trade value from your IR spot, right? So just for a couple reasons, I guess I'm pointing out that he doesn't have to be a bad pick though. I would absolutely take Mooney over him 20 times out of 20. It's not close. And I would take Reed over Ayuk outside of that IR. If you take the IR spot away, he goes way down for me, though. Like, I need that IR spot to make this pick. Without it, he's down at least around probably 2, just to be fair. So that's how much I'm putting weight on that free IR spot part of the value, if that makes sense. So I'm closer on your take. It's more of the situationalness of the pick. Reed, I think, is a little slept on there. I just don't really love Diggs anymore at this point. A lot of drama. I like I don't think Pittman's dead. I mean, he had a lot of those injuries and whatnot last year. I tend to follow the like if a player is buried because of injury situation, I just think the chances that it's not a situation going forward are more likely than the public gives him credit for. So I would extend my tier of wide receivers that are still I like to some degree, but if you were putting them in similar tiers, I think there's a big difference to your credit, Vike, with guys at the top of my tier that I think are very different versus the like Mooney feels great to me. None of those picks I mentioned feel great. So to that extent, I would agree with you to some level for sure. Just finishing out a couple of others here. Got Philadelphia. I know I'm saying if you guys don't know him, this is one of his usernames, but in Discord in a lot of the places. I also know him as Terry. Just throwing that out there. I'll take TJ Watt from Steelers and Johnson. That's about it. That's fair. Yeah, give me some TJ Watt too. Fair point. I don't know. You might have to change your tune, man. If my biggest think about even on the Vikings though, right? How much of your success is Kevin O'Connell? You guys have to be loving your head coach, right? I mean, dude's amazing. Look at who you just had at quarterback and how good Kevin O'Connell made him. Right? How do we feel about him now that he's not in the Vikings? That's all Kevin O'Connell, right? Well, if Kevin O'Connell can do that, who's a better coach, Kevin O'Connell or Ben Johnson? We don't know. But is there a possibility that coaching has been Chicago's Achilles heel for years? And outside of coaching, getting out of our own way, we could be good? I think we could be the next Vikings. And on paper, we're similar to you in talent. So we'll have to see. I hope we can follow the get the good head coach. It's all fixed. I thought that I wanted the Bears to do that. When Sean Payton got bought for a draft pick, right? I wanted the Bears to do that so bad. Like we could have all the first round picks in the world. If we don't have coaching, like they're just burn them all. Doesn't make too much sense. McCarthy should do well just fine if Sam could do well. Amen. I think JJ McCarthy is already a better coached college player. Plus, he's got more legs than Sam Darnold, and that becomes increasingly more valuable in the modern NFL. So, yeah, I think McCarthy's going to do just fine as well. Let's see. Looking at this draft, I've decided I'm going to start every draft with 4 to 5 wide receivers and then just stockpile late RBs. Don't like these later wide receivers at all. Certainly one of my more favorite ways to play best ball a little bit. My follow-up on that, Vike, I guess, would be what are the way I would go, because I'm going to go through that thought process myself. I'm going to push every build out there to its extreme in multiple mocks to figure out what felt good, and I'm going to analyze it and what looked good. And then I'm going to see how viable each is, right? And when the build works, how league winning is it? If the board falls a different way, how bad did it go wrong? What's my recoverability? So I'm going to rank all this stuff. I've never published it before. It's always just in my head to win my own leagues, but I'm going to try to get more of that out this year. Vike, let's see that in a mock, man. I definitely want to see it. That's how Wilson has been drafting a lot. You guys know him. He drafts in here. He's pretty much been ripping at least 4 wide receivers straight, regardless of who's on the board. And we've liked the way his drafts have come out. So my biggest challenge is, so you get through 4. So you're in the dead zone. You would take what we might call the dead zone starting in 5, right? The Pacheco Mixons, you got the rookie running backs we like there, the B-Robs, the Pollards, the Mason. I mean, I have been pushing myself more in that direction, but not because I didn't like the late wide receivers. It was more because I was looking at the round by round difference of the running backs I was seeing. As soon as it got after Kyron Brees, I guess, even as early as that tier, I'm like, man, this late 3, early 4 feels pretty similar to round 7. It's close. And because of that, I was like, maybe I should go a little more wide receiver centric early so I can take more running backs later. Vike, I think the biggest challenge here is going to be we have to think ahead and say, is this ADP going to hold? How is it going to move? If it stays as is, I think that's more viable. If running backs get pushed up the board a little bit, we'd have to reevaluate that a little bit. But I don't think you're wrong at that being a very, very viable build at all. And plus, it's more viable than ever because, at least in my opinion, I like late quarterback and tight end. So the ability to go all those wide receivers and then go like chunky, drafting at least 3 or 4 running backs in a row. Like you could go through round 8, you go 4 wides, then 4 running backs, and still grab Njoku in the 9 or Kraft in 10, and then some quarterback, right? Because that's possible, you get to really rearrange those first 8 picks however you want to. And that may be the way to go. So we're gonna have to play around with it. Like I do think it could be very, very viable. We're seeing here. You start 4 wide receivers and still grab Henderson, Johnson, Pollard, Warren, Spears, and then fill it out. Yeah, I think we listed a lot of the same ones there. Completely agree. The thing is, right? So like people were reaching reasonably down the board for these running backs. When the running backs get pushed up in ADP, are we just going to take them at ADP versus reaching, or are we going to like reach for them earlier? And the likelihood that we can still, specifically that likelihood of getting like Caleb and Hendy in the 6th, I think they end up in the 5th at the latest. They may get pushed to the 4th. Hampton already started as like a 5th and then 4th and then 3rd. Now he's in the 2nd, right? I mean, that's one example, but rookie fever tends to catch. It's going to be a thing. Harvey will probably get boosted up unless J.K. Dobbins gets some big camp news, but I think Harvey might get more. We'll have to see. But I do agree, Vike, if ADP like this stays true, I do think that would be a way to win. You just look at Fanta's draft, right? Like, so through 4, right? Throw the Hampton pick in there as like, this is a more stable, like, okay, you want to go 4 wides through 4 through 4, but a running back value falls to you. Okay, maybe it's like, okay, that's how that goes. And then the next 4, instead of 4 running backs, it was 3 running backs plus throw downs in there, right? So a slight aberration, but it is kind of that through 8, it's 4 and 4. And I do think I agree with you in that I like the way the wide receiver early felt. And then I don't hate any of these running back picks now. I think they have quite a bit of upside. I guess I'm slightly more comfortable with some wide receivers in this range. But even if we're talking not about the later range, but just about the Ridley here, right? Like, I think Ridley in the 6th is awesome, right? I kind of want to be drafting Ridley in the 6th over the running backs here. Well, Swift and Ridley are, I guess, kind of close. So what's more projectable? What's more possible? I think there's more volatility at running backs with how the touchdowns can kind of go up or down, left or right. What games are you ahead? What games are you behind? If you're a pass catcher, sometimes you catch passes, sometimes you're ahead, right? Where I think the wide receivers at the alpha level are a little more projectable. And getting a Mason late and then having him be an RB1, right? That's value you cannot necessarily get because, Myers, Golden, Downs, Igbuka, these guys, like, there's some limited upside in some of these wide receivers. Like, I even admitted Downs is in a different tier of upside than, say, Rome. But that Rome, Waddle, like throw Waddle out for a second. Rome, Ridley, Hunter, like, from a pure talent perspective, those guys could break their team in fantasy. They could do stupid stuff. I mean, there's a range of outcomes for it. So there's some wide receivers I still like there, but build quality, I think Vike's got a point there. So anyways, guys, it's 12:30 now. We've been going for 2 hours, which is a lot longer than even the mock draft was. That's how this is probably going to go down, though. These are going to be more chill sessions. We're going to talk about less, but what we do talk about is going to be more in depth. And so feel free to hop into the DMs, definitely on the YouTube comments. That it will help me out a ton. But what I'm really looking for is legitimate feedback. Let me know what you liked, if you liked it in general. What topics or directions would you want to see in the future? This versus that. Do you want to see some of my teams and what I'm doing? Do you want me to break down other leagues and things that you have, right? Other mocks that you've done with other folks. I'm just looking to get more feedback. I'm still going to do what I want to do, but at the end of the day, I am legitimately curious because I tend to put out what I want to listen to. and what I think the market isn't doing and what other shows aren't doing. That's kind of what I'm going to try to introduce to some of these segments. And I just wonder if we think alike or if there are different market blind spots that, in the limited amount of time you have with the limited fantasy football analysts and personalities that you choose to spend your time with, how do you want to spend that time? Where's a spot you're missing? If I can fill that void because I think the same as you, we'll do it. Or at least have a conversation about it. So, yeah, almost done. 45 minutes later. It's crazy how fast that can go. I got to be honest, I did not think I had gone that much more. From when I said I'll wrap this up soon, without looking at the clock, I thought it was more like 10, 15 minutes, and it was absolutely not. So that's trippy. Yeah, Vike, that is absolutely your fault. But hey, I missed you, buddy. I got to do what I got to do. But also, look, if you guys engage with me, I am a degenerate fantasy football guy, and I want to sip on my little White Claw over here or my wine that I have in the fridge, and I want to talk fantasy with you guys. So if you're gonna throw questions and opinions back, I have the inner fantasy demon in me just has to crawl out. So no other way to go. But that being said, I gotta get some sleep because otherwise, how am I gonna do content tomorrow? And got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old I got to run around with and do all sorts of fun stuff with them. Is what my 3-year-old loves. Taking my phone, pulling up. I'll pull up Sleeper and look at Dad's players. So one of my favorite things to do. Maybe I'm a bad parent for that, but got to start him early, right? We'll see how it goes. He knows nothing about football, but he knows how to say "Go Bears." So I've already ruined him. Ruin yours too. Get him saying "Go Bears." I don't really think I'm. By the way, if anyone has some free SoundCloud, some music that still allows me to be monetized and all that good stuff, I need some intro and outro music for this little bonus content and just for my own channel. So if you guys come across anything, by the way, let's get some user submitted stuff in here because I don't know what I'm doing or where else to put it. And you guys might know. So actually throw that to me if you can. In the meantime, though, I think we could probably at least roll the outro music that I totally don't have prepped at all. There we go. Prep the outro. If any of you guys use stream stuff, yeah, you can prep your outro video, but unlike me, I was not prepped at all. But let's not let that take another 45 minutes. Just in closing, y'all have a great night. Stay safe. It's been real. Please, I know the moniker is like and subscribe, but here's what I'm asking for if I'm just being direct, right? Please subscribe even if you never want to watch another video. If you just want to support an up-and-coming analyst streamer, it helps. It helps a lot, and it makes me feel quite happy. So appreciate that. And then the algorithm, it won't help you so much, but if you, this is a live stream, but if you can like the live stream, it helps other people see it. And after the live stream is done, if you go to our YouTube channel and just pick the last 3 videos we did and just like them all, that helps with the algorithm, helps other people find the video. And I'm pretty terrible at marketing, and I hate going on X and begging people to watch stuff. So if YouTube can naturally put it in front of a few people's faces, that would be super cool. Because again, not the best marketer. And so those little things go a long way. And it's free. We will be, I'm kind of spearheading the monetization of the channel, trying to find a way to make sure we're packaging legitimate content, all the fun stuff at the smallest possible price and still free. Most of it is still free, but there'll probably be a package or tier where you can support the show, help us do more stuff, because we really can't do more without paying a couple bills. The wives are going to come for us at some point. I'm sure you understand. So I'll keep all of the fans in the loop and in the Discord and have full AMAs every step of the way. But if y'all can help us get to that point so we can keep the price down because we got the rest of the public and the masses maybe checking us out, that helps a little bit too. So if you guys are willing to help me out with that, this is my humble ask, and I thank you kindly for anyone that does so. And if you guys aren't, also, I mentioned it earlier, but Zion Penumbra here, aka Picadelphia, has a wonderful Discord. gives us lots of support, helps other new content creators and new streamers. So if you ever wanted to maybe get your start, Get Right helped me do that. And now we're going to do lots of fun things. Maybe we could do that for you. Maybe Terry can help you with that too, aka Picadelphia. So definitely check him out, get in our Discord, and we'll help you get over to his. We hang out there quite a bit. I am almost going to go for another 45. So y'all have a good night. Y'all are legends. Seriously amazing drafters too. Hardcore comments. I feel like folks could probably learn a lot just from reading our chat. These are sharp opinions. And steel sharpens steel. So with that, cheers, boys and girls. It's been real.
Wanted to white fantasy is the play. Marking nothing, but I tune every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go